Look at Detroit. The 1950s rust and the echoes of the assembly line that built the American middle class. Now, look at Shenzhen, a sterile, automated landscape of robotic precision. Here is the paradox. When you buy an American EV to save our industry, you are inadvertently subsidizing a Chinese scientific industrial complex that mastered the supply chain physics before we even left the starting block. Strip away the leather and the infotainment. An EV is not a car. It is a high-voltage chemical reactor on wheels. The West focused on the aerodynamics, but China focused on the anode-cathode dynamics. They realized that whoever controls the lithium-ion lattice structures controls the future of sovereign transportation. We are driving their chemistry, even if we fly our flag. The EV trap, China's masterclass in macro development. Flashback to 2001. Beijing was choking on smog, but their scientists weren't just looking for air filters. They hit the combustion engine wall. They realized they could never replicate a century of Western thermodynamic refinement. They didn't want to catch up. They wanted to render the internal combustion engine obsolete through technological asymmetric warfare. Enter Wang Gang, an Audi engineer who saw the path dependency of the West as a weakness. He pitched a radical pivot to the CCP, bypassed the mechanics of the past, and leapfrogged directly into electrochemistry. While Detroit was perfecting the piston, Wang Gang was weaponizing the periodic table to bypass the Great Wall of patents built by the West. Detroit spent a century perfecting the internal combustion engine, achieving peak thermal efficiency just as the game changed. This is the incumbent's dilemma. While we optimized the piston, China executed a technological leapfrog. By shifting the S-curve from mechanical kinetics to electrochemistry, they rendered 100,000 Western engine patents, the very bedrock of our industrial pride, functionally obsolete overnight. This wasn't a market signal. It was a sovereign command. Through their 5-year plans, Beijing treated battery science not as a commercial venture, but as a monolithic national security objective. They directed state-backed capital with a surgical precision that Western venture capital, obsessed with quarterly returns, simply cannot replicate. It's the ultimate fusion of scientific theory and top-down industrial mobilization. In this new era, geopolitical power isn't measured in barrels of oil, but in the control of the Earth's crust. To build the future, you must own the periodic table. China realized early that if they controlled the midstream processing of lithium, cobalt, and nickel, they wouldn't just be making cars, they would be holding the keys to the entire global energy transition. Look at the Democratic Republic of Congo. While the West focused on ESG optics, Chinese state-owned enterprises were aggressively acquiring the world's most vital cobalt reserves. This is a vertical integration of a continent. They've secured the bottleneck. Every battery powering a smartphone in the Midwest likely contains minerals extracted via a supply chain that begins and ends in Beijing. And here, in the lithium triangle of South America, the scale of their ambition is chilling. Massive evaporation ponds industrial scars, visible from space built with Chinese infrastructure and Chinese debt. They aren't just mining, they are terraforming the global economy to ensure that the path to a green America must always pass through a Chinese refinery. Mining is merely the extraction of dirt. The real geopolitical leverage lies in metallurgical refining. While the US stalled on environmental impact assessments, Beijing mastered the toxic, high-energy alchemy of hydrometallurgical leaching. They realized early on that owning the dirt is useless if you don't control the industrial kiln that purifies it into battery-grade precursor chemicals. Call it the 90% rule. Even if a mineral is extracted in the Australian outback and installed in a Tesla in Texas, its molecular structure was likely altered in a Chinese facility. China currently processes nearly 90% of the world's rare earth elements. We aren't just losing a market, we are surrendering the toll gate to the entire global transport infrastructure. Inside this cell, the piston has been replaced by the precise morphology of the anode and cathode. The separator and the electrolyte, specifically lithium hexafluorophosphate, are the new high-tech frontiers. This isn't just manufacturing, it's an atomic-level race where the United States is currently lacking the chemical engineering workforce to even enter the laboratory. Enter CATL. This isn't just a corporation, it's a sovereign industrial organism. By vertically integrating the entire supply chain from the mine to the finished pack, they've achieved a scale that makes Detroit's legacy assembly lines look like cottage industries. They didn't just innovate, they weaponized chemical scaling to become the world's indispensable battery supplier. This is chemical warfare. NMC versus LFP. Western engineers obsessed over nickel, manganese, cobalt for high energy density, the high performance pursuit. But China played the long game with lithium iron phosphate. LFP is cheaper, safer, and cobalt free. By perfecting the low-end chemistry, China didn't just compete, they cornered the mass-market reality of the global middle class. While Detroit was busy optimizing the internal combustion stroke, BYD was quietly mastering the electrochemical cell. They didn't just scale, they vertically integrated. Their blade battery is a masterstroke of structural engineering, eliminating the module level to maximize volumetric energy density. It turns the battery from dead weight into a load-bearing member of the chassis, a leap in cell-to-body architecture that Western OEMs are only now reverse engineering. To the uninitiated, the billions of yuan in subsidies look like market distortion. To a development analyst, it's a high-stakes capex injection designed to bypass the valley of death. This wasn't just corporate welfare. It was the calculated incubation of a scientific ecosystem, buying the necessary R&D runway to achieve a localized monopoly on the entire value chain. Witness the Darwinian graveyard. Hundreds of Chinese startups vanished, but their failure served a purpose. Beijing engineered a hyper-competitive pressure cooker that forced a brutal, rapid iteration of battery management systems and thermal cooling tech. Only the most efficient, most ruthless chemical architectures survived. It's not just a market. It's an industrial particle accelerator. The trap shifts from chemistry to silicon. These aren't just cars, they are mobile data harvesting supercomputers. By integrating advanced LiDAR arrays and localized edge computing, China has turned the vehicle into a sensor node for their national AI strategy. While we debate the legacy of the V8, they've already secured the neural networks of the future of mobility. The final strategic encirclement is the macro grid. China's deployment of millions of high-speed DC chargers isn't a convenience, it's a state-driven engineering marvel. It creates a unified, synchronized energy transport nexus. Compare that to the fragmented, unreliable American charging patchwork, and you see the true scale of our infrastructure deficit. In 2018, the CCP did the unthinkable. They allowed a foreign entity to own a factory without a joint venture proxy. Why? Because the Shanghai Gigafactory wasn't an olive branch, it was a Trojan horse in reverse. Beijing didn't just want the Model 3, they wanted the orbital pull of Tesla's Tier, one supply chain to force a domestic industrial pivot. 10 months. From a muddy wasteland to a fully operational meganode in less than a year. While Detroit battles legacy inertia and zoning red tape, China's top-down mobilization achieved hyperscaling. This isn't just civil engineering, it's a display of state-directed kinetic energy that the West hasn't mirrored since the 1940s. The true toll of Tesla's entry: forced evolution. To plug into Tesla's ecosystem, local component manufacturers had to shrink their tolerances to the micron level overnight. China effectively used Elon Musk to stress test their domestic industry, upgrading their manufacturing DNA to meet global standards through a brutal, high-stakes filter. Then, the students surpassed the master. Brands like BYD and NIO didn't just copy the homework, they inherited the optimized supply chain Tesla built. By leveraging this hyper-integrated cluster, they've achieved a vertical integration density that allows them to iterate hardware at software speeds, crushing Western cost structures into obsolescence. 2023 was the inflection point. Massive ro-ro vessels, each carrying thousands of Chinese-made EVs, are now docking in European ports, the physical manifestation of industrial hegemony. This isn't a trade dispute, it's the arrival of a monopoly. The trap is sprung, and the global automotive map is being redrawn in real time. Think China's lead is just cheap labor. You're miscalculating the physics of the supply chain. Look at the bill of materials, the BOM. By co-locating lithium refineries with cell fabrication and cathode synthesis, China has achieved a 30% cost advantage that is mathematically locked in. It's not a wage gap. It's an industrial integration that defies Western logistical entropy. They aren't just outworking us. They've optimized the atomic flow from mine to motor. The hardware was the bait. The software is the trap. While Detroit struggles with legacy infotainment lag, Chinese OEMs have built unified OS ecosystems that turn the car into a mobile data node. We are talking about edge computing and AI-integrated digital cockpits that make Western interfaces look like a 2005 flip phone. If you don't own the operating system, you don't own the customer. We are being geo-fenced out of the future of mobility. The silence in the boardrooms of Detroit and Stuttgart is deafening. They are staring at a century of internal combustion mastery, the valves, the pistons, the precision gearboxes, and realizing it's all industrial archeology. This is the existential dread of deindustrialization. Your PhD in thermodynamics doesn't mean a thing in a world governed by solid-state electrolytes and silicon carbide inverters. The crown jewels of the West have just been devalued to zero. Washington is throwing $369 billion at the problem via the Inflation Reduction Act, a massive attempt to decouple the American heartland from the Chinese dragon. But here is the hard truth. You can legislate subsidies, but you can't legislate mineral sovereignty overnight. We are trying to build a 21st century infrastructure on a 19th century regulatory framework. You can't print a lithium refinery into existence with a stimulus check. Strip away the green marketing and the environmental altruism. This isn't about saving the planet, it's about the tectonic shift of human development. The EV transition is the most aggressive geopolitical land grab in history. And right now, the West is an occupied territory. We are moving from a world run on oil we can protect to a world run on chemistry we don't control. The trap is set. The question is, do we have the resolve to innovate our way out? Stay sharp, subscribe to Deep Future.